Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner, MetaZone, Rovi, and MScribe, and today we're going to be talking about TRAC.
Some Bitcoin stuff, dude.
And some Bitcoin stuff. Yeah, so if we go back 2 years ago.
Oh, my God. Dude.
Around this time 2 years ago, we were talking about this little token called TRAC.
Yeah, and even deeper context, this little token protocol called BRC20s, right?
That's right.
Remember that? So you guys really want to. You can go find these old videos. It's like, whoa.
Yeah,
March. BRC20s.
Yeah, March 2023.
Yeah, because we stumbled upon it doing our Ordinals investigations. We found, if you don't know what Ordinals are, it's just assets on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Non-fungible specifically, but then through Ordinals experimentation, fungibility was semi-achieved and explored through these new token protocols. And it was quite the...
Semi is an understatement.
Yeah, nonetheless, achieved, right? And, micromania ensued. It was interesting times.
Yeah, we found it at a total market cap of 20 million, all BRC20s.
All of them combined.
Like a week or two later, $1 billion market cap total.
Yeah, several weeks later.
It felt like a week.
Yeah, it was very fast, where it's like this hidden gem of like an experimental ecosystem on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Going to talk of the town, Binance started supporting it very quickly.
Yeah.
And then from there, people were assuming this is going to change everything. And then, here we are 2 years later, largely, completely, I would almost classify it as roughly a failed experiment.
Roughly the same. I wouldn't say failed, but the same.
Almost. Failed in the sense it hasn't discovered its new iteration of legs moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. But within this whole little microcosm of happenings, as we do on this channel, whenever we discover new emerging ecos, it's let's look at the individually, who's building.
Yes.
On top of this.
I was going to ask you. I was going to tee you up on this.
Yeah.
It's what was it about the early days in 2023 that we found TRAC? What was it about TRAC that made us hone in on it? Because there was hundreds of different BRC20s at the time.
Yeah. But we were during those days, we were what's the opposite of a maxi?
A experimenter?
I was going to say Naxi, but that's too close to Nazi.
So.
We're a non-maxi.
Yeah, no.
So we were meme coin non-maxis back in those days. So literally every other ticker was essentially a meme coin.
Yes, it was.
You got rats, you got sats and bats and flats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just whatever you could rhyme with sats, right?
Right.
That was the meme of the time, and then that's what the market largely was speculating on, was just memetics on Bitcoin.
Right, right.
But there's this one little shining beacon of potential there called TRAC.
Yes.
That was actually proclaiming to solve an actual fundamental technical issue in the space, which was decentralized indexing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And we found it at a $200,000 or $300,000 market cap. Holy crap, dude! The current day market valuation in context of what it is they're trying to achieve, the ambitions and scale of what this can become, there's definitely a mismatch there.
Yeah.
And we were right. And 100x ensued.
Yeah.
Yada yada yada. Here we are. So let's kind of go through where we're at with that.
All right. So
there's quite the evolution happening for this token.
Yeah, there's definitely some updates to discuss. So the TRAC protocol, so TAP protocol came from the TRAC network, and the TRAC network will soon be launching the HyperMall to demonstrate the power of its advanced L1 tech. It will allow Bitcoin assets to be traded at hyper speed, and the TAP protocol will play a leading role. And we're going to show you a quick tweet thread that's going to go and describe a lot of this stuff. They wrote an article. This is the network and the TRAC network and the HyperMall just published a network or an article here that we're going to go actually.
I think it's the next tweet, underneath it, right there.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, so classic Medium article. So yeah, there's a little bit of confusion between the terminology of a HyperMall, right?
Yeah, so HyperMall is an app running on the updated TRAC network. Yeah,
so this is the big breakthrough here as far as TRAC started off as basically an indexing solution for this new extension to BRC20s, which was the TAP protocol. So it's a Bitcoin L1 thing, right? But now, and then the TRAC network was the distributed nodes that support this indexing layer for Bitcoin.
Yes.
That is the value prop here. So we're that's pretty cool. We've seen these types of subgraph-esque architecture models in the past with like things like the graph or Chainlink. Right? That's why we made those market comparisons. Dude. That's what you want to do when you discover new things. Like, oh, there's similar comparable projects out there in the ecosystem. There was, right?
Yeah.
Those are like multi-billion-dollar infrastructure plays.
Correct.
That's what gave TRAC its notable like value prop.
Yeah, right? And that's how we were able to discover it so early, because we understood what those chains were offering as a solution. And so if we were having that same solution brought to Bitcoin, it's like that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, we were, Ethereum app developers before we were Bitcoin app developers, right? And we were users of these core infrastructure providers, right?
We were, yeah. The graph especially.
So we're like, hey, we're probably going to develop some stuff here on Bitcoin. We're probably going to need similar technology infrastructure.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it was like, it was a no-brainer, right? Then like the mimetic wave swept over the market, and it's like, you know what? Fundamentals, technologies, fuck that. I don't want to hear about that. Where's the memes at, dude? So
yeah,
we're in a little bit of like a weird territory where you propose all this valuable technical solution to things, but the market doesn't see or respect or honor that value. Instead, they want to like sweep it under the rug as like non-essentials.
Right.
Like, we need to just stick to memes here, boys.
Yeah, and we live in a timeline where we actually executed what it's like to only have memes.
Right, yeah.
Right, and that was like a series of pump and dumps and insider groups and all that stuff for the most part.
Yeah.
But TRAC, they're building something kind of like a solution to kind of the slowness of trading on Bitcoin. And so now we have HyperMall. So I definitely recommend you guys read through this article here by Fitzy.
Mm-hmm.
And he does a good job kind of explaining a lot of this stuff. And so we're going to kind of theorize as to how this is going to play out in a lot of respects. So we did talk about this in last Twitter Spaces on Friday.
Which I didn't. I was sick.
Yeah, that's right.
But I did catch up on the conversation, and I think there definitely needs to be more conversation around this subject.
Especially around how this links into like the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Especially that.
Yeah.
Because, this is the Bitcoin 2.0 show, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's imperative to establish that connection, right? Because if there's an ecosystem that needs like hyper scalability and like user friendliness and stuff like that, more than anything, it is the Bitcoin ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
So TRAC Network is providing an alternate solution or pathway towards that, right? And it's a non-traditional means of doing that, which is what stands out to us as interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the case of HyperMall, they're going to be supporting the TAP token and the GIB token at the beginning.
That's not. So TRAC Network is its own L1 like thing. It's not even a blockchain, so we're not going to call it an L1 chain.
Correct.
It's just an L1 network.
Yes.
Right? But the HyperMall is like an application connected to that network.
That leverages that network.
Yeah, so what I'm imagining it being is like a DEX environment potentially.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So that implies, so that's like what we're understanding here, the TAP and GIB token being supported. That means you're going to be able to trade these things on HyperMall in a very fast way.
Correct. Yeah. And more L1 token support, because all this stuff's connected to the TAP protocol, which is a Bitcoin L1 meta protocol.
Mm-hmm.
These things communicate, right, through a mechanism called co-processing, which we see it playing out in the Bitcoin ecosystem now with Odin.
Yes.
It's co-processing communication between ICP and Bitcoin.
Yep.
So these things can be achieved, right? And so let's go into a little bit more depth. Like, okay, it's a new L1. So this TRAC token, which pretty much started off as like a BRC20 meme.
Yes.
It had like a static supply. Now it's going to have a dynamic one. And it's supporting something completely different, right?
Yeah, and it's supporting something completely different, but in the context of like the TRAC network, we're seeing something that in the market people will want really good experiences, right?
For sure,
they want fast experiences. They don't care about like the fundamentals as much as we'd like them to, right?
When you say fundamentals, like what? I mean, like speed and performance is like fundamentals, right?
True,
it's a category of fundamentals.
But what you're trading in terms of like the token itself, like the fundamentals don't really play a huge role.
I see.
Right, so it's a meme economy essentially. But what's interesting about the TRAC network is that developers are allowed to build in this ecosystem and build whatever app that they want. It could be a metaverse, could be any other app.
Mm-hmm.
And so with this like hyper fast trading experience, now you can kind of leverage potentially hosting a metaverse in this environment, or being able to essentially build anything. So what we like about TRAC is that it's developer friendly, right? It's not a kind of like a one use case or one trick pony, essentially. And so here we're talking about the TRAC validator. And so the validator is how you become part of the network.
Yeah, these things have been like distributed through like different sale of tranches with the TRAC token itself, right?
Right.
So it started off much like lower cost, and then over time it scales upwards. So the more the like rounds they do of these license distributions, the more expensive it becomes.
Yeah. So So right now I think a cost of a validator is about $600. So it's roughly 1,500 TRAC tokens. And yeah, so that's how you become a TRAC validator. You can run this network. It's sort of like a peer-to-peer like network, where it's built upon this directed acyclic graph, and as you add to this like this system, it doesn't depend on like an entire linear chain, so it's extremely fast.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I'm peering back to my memory bank, all the way back in like the 2017, 2018 days of crypto, hearing about DAGs for the first time with like IOTA.
That's right, yeah.
Hedera, Hashgraph, stuff like that, right? And I remember people talking about these new architecture frameworks as potential blockchain killers. They're still around, but blockchain killers they are not yet. At least, blockchain, I think for a lot of reasons is like going to remain like the most dominant form of like distributed ledger technology, mostly because of Bitcoin, right? Is because the predecessor advantage of that. It's like something so valuable as Bitcoin, even though it might be technically inferior to something like this new architecture model, but $2 trillion in network value.
Yeah.
Even though it's like slow, it's painful, whatever, right? Like there's less motivation to kind of like veer away from that.
Unless, 100%.
Yeah, unless you have like a very specific use case here that, you're not trying to replicate like the value accrual mechanics of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You're more so trying to facilitate something of like user friendliness, like a front end, consumer friendly, consumer grade ecosystem for app development, right?
Yeah. So you're saying it's like, we have this thing called Bitcoin. It's all of a sudden $2 trillion after 15 years. And developers are like, okay, well, I guess I need to build a blockchain in order to facilitate, something of value. And that's not necessarily the case, right?
Well, because there's other options. You could still maintain like a distributed ledger.
Yeah.
Different consensus models and such.
Yeah.
But again, it's like all of this is in like the same pool of market participation.
Sure.
Right? So the market is like, it's well understood. Blockchains, that's the thing. That's the value of our industry or space, right? So here you coming in with a non-chain thing.
Yeah.
You have a little bit more friction there as far as interpretive value.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so then the question is like, okay, we have TRAC, and you're saying like the early days was like, it was like a meme coin, and now it's transitioning to a new version, right? TRAC 2.0, and so the original token was fixed at 21 million supply. So when it transitions to the new token, it's not going to be fixed anymore. It's going to be dynamic.
Yeah,
and it's dynamic based on like how many nodes there are, how many applications are running, and it sort of fluctuates based on that.
Yeah, and there's also an interesting, so that's good. That means, you become a validator. You're going to, because there's now a new emission of the token, you're receiving that. As like
you're incentivized. Exactly.
Yeah, and if you're the app developer, you can add additional layers of incentivization, right? Like new tokens that are deployed on this network that get directed to validators, right? So not only are you getting TRAC emission, say it's like a very, like a pump.fun scale of like a killer app.
Sure.
Hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue being generated from this app.
Yeah.
I would imagine being a validator for that
is going to be very juicy.
Yeah, some kind of juice would come my way, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Whether it's like a, pumped.fun token would be very valuable, I would imagine, if it existed.
Yeah.
And if it was being emitted, like, if you wanted a pumped.fun that's like, has some semblance of decentralization to it, where it's peer-to-peer facilitated, you need to support the network doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
And the way you do that is with a token.
Yeah.
And so with this dynamic supply, I think I remember, we had this conversation a while back also in the Twitter spaces, but they said that the number still hovers, as the supply still hovers around 21 million. It's just, it fluctuates up and down. And so we probably need to get a little bit deeper with the TRAC team to kind of understand like what are the supply levers where the supply goes up and the supply goes down. But the
Yeah.
good news is that as you run the validator, you get the tokens as an incentive. And so here we have kind of like an interesting thread that goes into like how that works. And
Yeah, so there there must be
deeper.
some sort of migration process coming
There
soon.
will be, yeah.
Yeah, so we've seen that happen before, like different BRC20s migrate to runes, stuff like that. So, I mean, migration, usually there's like a period of time where you migrate your tokens to this new, token protocol.
Yeah.
So who knows how that work out, but once, that information's out, yeah, we'll definitely be on top of that.
Yeah, so another question is, well, what is a DAG, directed acyclic graph? And so it's pretty complex, like trying to understand exactly like the benefits other than like the speed benefits. But we're going to include this link here that kind of explains the value propositions of a DAG versus a traditional linear blockchain. But it's essentially like a blockchain, except it kind of can branch into its own directions, and you don't need all of the data as part of the consensus to continue propagating more blocks into that graph.
Yeah, so that makes things much faster.
Yeah.
Right? So in today's day and age, it seems like speed is almost everything. Like Solana did very well so far.
Mm-hmm.
At least the killer app that was deployed on top of Solana, Pumped Up Fund, did very well because it achieved product market fit because it facilitated something that the market was demanding, right?
Yeah.
And it did that by leveraging the innate properties of the Solana's chain itself, which it is a blockchain, but it's a very scalable one for a different degree of reasons, right? Which again, there's trade-offs to that.
Yeah, trilemma.
Yeah. So at the sacrifice of decentralization, you've got a consumer-friendly experience, right?
Yeah.
And the market has just demonstrated that is what the market wants. So now you got Sonic out here touting even better numbers, ICP, you got all these chains out here. They're just hyper fast.
Hyper fast, yeah.
Yeah. And then, so at the end of the day, I don't think the users really care how that speed is being achieved, right?
Right.
I think that's a safe assumption.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the applications. If people like the app, they're going to use it. Whether it's decentralized or not, it doesn't matter, right? So
yeah, but there's a lot of factors also. It's like network effect is huge, right? Because you can't just deploy a chain and like all of a sudden things happen, right?
Correct.
You need to attract developers and builders is probably the most important thing, right? If Elon never, because he started on Ethereum too, if you never went to Solana and felt like you need to build Pumped Up Fund there, Solana never would have had this explosion, right?
Yeah, who would who knows? Had he built it on Ethereum, maybe Ethereum would have exploded, or maybe not. Maybe it's like it was too slow. Maybe it required a faster environment like Solana. Or
it's just incompatible demographic.
Maybe, yeah.
Culture, there's more than, it's not just network effect for developer access.
Yeah.
There's also cultural alignment to the ethos of that chain and the demographic there. So there's a lot of variables here. So TRAC is bringing a new degree of access here for developers and users, but can a cultural culture emerge from this that
that's aligned with the mission, which is faster experiences and
it's something novel, right?
Yeah.
So we have a few ideas in mind that could potentially accelerate that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've done something like that. So so we mentioned DAG. It's okay, so which blockchains are using DAG? And there's a few of them. There's a handful of them, and one of them is Hedera Hashgraph, HBAR. And so I think recently people have been talking about HBAR just because of its sudden explosion here. But look at the market cap, $8 billion.
Yeah.
Right? This is not something that you sleep on.
Definitely not. And I mean, again, this is old legacy stuff. And it's still
2017 stuff, I think.
What's it say there?
2019. Yeah. I think it goes before that.
Yeah, I remember this. This was definitely part of the ICO
that's right.
heyday. But it's still around. It's still representing progress here. But that's quite a discrepancy, right, between the value of Hedera and something like TRAC.
Yeah. So this is the website. So what about TRAC? So TRAC is worth almost $6 million.
Yeah, that's an M, not a B.
Yeah, million. So that is roughly 1,000x difference in terms of the discrepancy there.
Yeah, so you can see here in this chart, right? Again, we discovered this thing literally at the very far left end, right on these days.
So this is even before this, dude. This is May.
That's true. We were talking
March.
300 or 400. I mean, it was less than $1 million market cap.
Yeah, this is a 10x from where we found it right here at the very beginning.
This initial explosion was, again, in the contextual stage of, the Bitcoin ecosystem was nascent. It had tons of tremendous potential and opportunity. And again, the market understood TRAC was on its way to solving a critical pain point with indexing, right? So therefore, market appreciation ensued. You can see that in the chart reflection. Then it's like, okay, since that point, it seems like number go down technology. If you look at all ordinal charts, you go look at all the top ordinal collections, all the tokens, they all look like this.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, TRAC is it's going to be affected by the market conditions no matter what, right? So,
yeah. So, but the point is here, there's a new inflection point happening where TRAC is not like just only locked into the value of like the Ordinals ecosystem anymore.
Correct.
Like the value proposition has expanded quite significantly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the opportunity's there. So definitely, if you want to kind of like be part of the conversation, join us on Fridays, the TRAC and TAP Bitcoin 2.0 show. We get together to talk about like the latest happenings in the TRAC ecosystem. And so if you have questions around what's happening, I think this is a good time to come in and join the conversation. And then we're going to be looking very deeply into this HyperMall thing and the TRAC Network thing, because we're looking to leverage it to improve the experiences of mScribe and things like that. So, so we're active developers. We're actively seeking ways to improve products and things like that. And so I think this is a candidate.
100%. Yeah. I mean, the DMT stuff is kind of at a standstill because of these pain points we're talking about, where we have a viable L1 asset like Genesis protocol that has like a novelty to it that's native to Bitcoin. Can't be done on other chains. Well, can, but it like doesn't adopt those imbuable properties from Bitcoin itself.
Yeah.
So therefore, like that is the killer app that we've developed at this point. But what it's missing is this killer consumer grade infrastructure layer.
Yes.
That's needed to support all this stuff, right? So
yeah. So liquid dexes, fast trading, good experiences overall. You're not waiting 10 minutes or longer for a block to mine. Like that's not a good experience for anybody. And so we're actively looking into it. So we're going to go deeper into this as we get more information. And again, if you guys have any questions, please join us on Fridays for the TAP Spaces called Bitcoin 2.0 show. And all the links will be in the description. And if you guys find anything that you want us to talk about, definitely let us know in the comment section below. Appreciate you guys, and we will catch you in the next video.